Coach Moton, I first want to start by saying thank you for joining me. It is a privilege and an honor, not only for your time, but for you to be speaking here on my platform.
Oh man, you got me crying already. Thank you so much, man. It means the world to me. Like, I don't like doing off-season interviews, but when you called, I said, make sure we arrange this because I love what you're doing too, so congrats to you.
Thank you so much. Coach, you have over 30 awards here as a head coach at North Carolina Central, 4 NCAA tournament appearances and 4 conference titles, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. You have always stressed that it is bigger than basketball, and I think you do a good job of showing that through your single mother salute and the back to school giveaway that you do with PJ Tucker every year. Can you kind of talk about what motivated you to get that started and what it took to pull something like that off here in Raleigh?
I grew up in poverty, so when you grow up in poverty, you don't have much, but what you do have is your imagination and dreams, right? So I tell people all the time, everything that I'm doing now is really just coming to fruition and manifesting itself because I was a 12, 13-year-old kid thinking of a way to get my mom out of those conditions. And for some reason, I knew when I was 12 years old that the responsibility of generational wealth for my family or for us to make it out the hood was going to fall on my shoulders. So I started trying to get myself together. But I also realized that it's one thing to come from those situations, but it's another thing to help those and send the elevator back down. In our communities, one of the problematic things is people make it out and they never come back. They come back to show off their blessings, but they'll never come back to bless the hood. And I just wanted to come back and try to bless everyone because I knew firsthand those challenges. So everything that you just mentioned is personal to me, right? The back to school giveaway, that was really created because my mother couldn't afford for my brother and I to get a haircut just so we could be fresh just to go back to school. And I knew how that felt because we could only get like one outfit. So we give away shoes and haircuts and book bags and school supplies. When I was in 11th grade, I had a science teacher who said if I didn't have a scientific notation calculator, she was gonna fail me. My mother couldn't afford that. You know what I'm saying? So we try to provide all of those resources for those kids so they can feel good about themselves and be incentivized about learning. And also with the single mom salute, that's just a testament to my mother and everything that she endured and everything she went through. And I was raised by women and pretty much everyone in our hood. Like if you knocked on 400 of those apartments, a man wouldn't come to no door. So we all had the same circumstances and situations. So I always had a tremendous amount of respect and love for women.
Coach, you talk a lot about your mom, and in your Twitter bio, it says Hattie Mac's baby boy. And to me, that is a testament of not only your relationship with your mother, but kind of remembering who you are as you reach these new levels. So could you talk about your relationship with your mom and how you remember and stay Hattie Mac's baby boy?
Yeah, and that journey started in Boston, and there was a time where we grew up in this place called Orchard Park Projects, and it was Home a New Edition and all of those things. And my mom was going off to work one day, and the next day she came back home. She ain't feel like going, and so her and my godmom would always go to work together. And my godmother went, and she was duct taped at a bus stop by like a game and set on fire. And she didn't pass away, but my mom just realized right then, I gotta raise these 2 young kids in a better situation. So we moved down to North Carolina, which is where she was originally from. And I just think, if you look at the history of these speeches when someone receives an award like the Kevin Durant, like it became a meme, like you're the real MVP. But I was looking and I just saw his mom and saw his face and I know that look, right? And I just think when you see your mom struggle as a young man, there's a profound love that you have for her because you know she's doing the best that she can and she's working hard as she can for you. And she's staying the legal route. That's what I'm most proud of my mom about is because, when you're in the hood, you get to a point where your integrity is going to be tested, right?
Absolutely. Because
somebody's going to try to live the fast life, earn a fast buck, because you're just struggling. She always took the stance, and I'm appreciative of that for her. Like, there was a lady that we used to stay at her house until my mom got home. And I just remember watching the news one day. It's my mom's best friend. She ended up trying to rob a bank, right? And she was a beautiful, incredible spirit, but she just had it up to there. And she was like, I'm gonna try this. And you know, she'd just been incarcerated and everything. So it made me have a stronger appreciation for my mom. And there's nothing like a mother and a son's love. And to this day, I just try to honor her, you know, because I'm still blessed to have her here on earth.
Definitely. And Coach, I brought up your Twitter account. Recently, you were named the #2 Twitter account amongst all coaches. And I have one of your tweets here if you don't mind reading it aloud.
Don't you become the weapon that formed against you and prosper.
And I chose that tweet out of thousands of tweets, literally, because I feel like, you know, with us talking about it being bigger than basketball, this is one of the tweets that showcases that you show up authentically as yourself amongst all your platforms. You're not just Coach Moton on Twitter. And I want to know if there was a defining moment where you were like, I'm choosing to be transparent because these athletes need to see this.
Yeah, I just think it's, a lot of people don't know this. Like my grandmother once told me, she was like, the two most important days of your life is the day that you were born and the day that you figure out why. And I just really think, honestly, everyone is just on earth, not everyone, but 90% of this world is just on earth existing. They don't even know why God has them here. You know what I'm saying? And you can just see in their actions and their movements. And I figured out my purpose in life. And my purpose in life is pretty much to use basketball as a metaphor to teach life lessons to kids. That's basically it. So to answer your question, I probably knew from the time I got into coaching, because coaching chose me. I didn't choose it. My first job was at West Millbrook, and I took a $225 job for 3 months over an $85,000 job to become an assistant coach, right? So it was just divine intervention. That was just God saying, I want you to take this $675 a year over $85,000 a year. And then my high school job was another divine moment. It was my 10th grade French teacher, Kathy Moore, who's now the school superintendent of Wake County Public Schools. And she looked at me during a job interview and said, ever since you was 15, there was something special about you, so I'm gonna give you this job. And I had a 58 in her class, right? So I'm looking like, what was so special about me? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, this is great. So people don't know this story, but Central called me 3 times to come back, and I said, nah, I'm gonna stay at Sanderson High School because I wanted to be loyal to someone who gave me the opportunity. And then finally, Kathy Moore came to me and she said, what you have to offer this world is greater than Sanderson High School. You need to go back to your alma mater. And that's how I came back to North Carolina Central. So I came back here just trying to be my pure, authentic self. Like, at the end of the day, all those awards, that's cool, that's fine, that's dandy, but when they at your funeral and they're reading off your obituary, nobody cares about championships and awards. It's just, how was you a blessing to help other people? And so I just try to pride myself on that. And it's difficult, right? Because leadership is lonely. You're out there in an isolated state sometimes, and you just have the best interests of people, and sometimes those people don't have the best interests for themselves, but you just continue to nurture on and try to do what you was put on this earth to do.
And I think you made a great point. Who you are as a person is going to matter more than who you were as a coach. And in 2018, you put out a video on Twitter. You wrote a letter to yourself addressing years of anxiety, but not only that, you filmed it and put it out there. For one, how hard was it for you to identify that you were dealing with anxiety? How long did it take? And what made you want to put it out there for the world to see?
That was the toughest decision ever. My wife was like, you know, when you're married, you always have an accountability partner. Like, so my wife she told me for years, she was like, I know why you're acting like that. I know why this, and she would never say. And then we got in a disagreement one day, and she was like, Levelle, listen to me. And she, you know, anytime a woman takes her hands and put it over your face like this, like they about to give you some spiritual deep news, like, right? And so I'm a grown man, and she's like, baby, listen to me. I'm not your enemy. I love you, but I just think you need therapy on the things in your past that you never addressed. And she was specifically talking about my father. And being the loss of my grandmother, like I dealt with a lot of stuff. And in our community, we're taught to bottle those emotions up, be tough, be strong, not deal with it. And it just gave me a void. I just had a void in my heart for my entire life. So I wasn't able to function with any relationship, right? Because whatever girl I dated in high school, when your father leaves you, and my father left when I was 4, I would have preferred for him to just never be in my life than to come into my life and leave, because now I felt like that was my fault.
Wow.
Like, you left, and then I was upset with him because he left us and you leaving us in poverty. You know what I'm saying? Like, good, great, at least get us up off our feet. So I had all this resentment towards him, and I never heard from him ever again. And so I was like, wow, who can really love me if the man that created me didn't love me enough to stay? So you have all these thoughts, you're a kid, they go on, and it presents this insecurity within your personality. And so many people were going through it, and I was like, look, I guess it was God just speaking to me saying, hey, put this out. It'll help the world, right? It'll help somebody else will be touched by this story. And I did it, right? And my therapist said, just write a letter to yourself. And I wrote a letter to myself, and we just kind of filmed it, and I spoke about it, and I tried to get everything out, and it just kind of took off and just went crazy. And so many people to this day was like, look, I was touched by this situation. Thank you so much. And now their therapeutic rehab was writing a letter to themselves. So it served a great purpose.
And I could definitely appreciate that you did that, because like I said, you did this in 2018 before mental health was really a trend and a wave, and it's great that people are starting to talk about it now. But 2020, the pandemic hit, everything was going on with Black Lives Matter, police killings. Mental health was starting to be talked about, but you did this in 2018, and that's why I felt like it had to be personal to you.
Yeah, it was great, man. I met some friends along the way. Charlemagne, the guy, like he was getting therapy long before. Shout out to Charlemagne. And, him and I had some conversations. Then David Banner, him and I had some conversations all the time. And I just felt the need to address it because they gave me some feedback, and I thought, wow, I'm going through similar things, so let me get on this wave and kind of address it.
You talk about not having a father, but you're a father yourself now. When it comes to raising your kids, are you still as transparent with them about how you grew up and the things that you experienced, because they get to live a better life than you did, have more opportunities than you had?
Mm-hmm. I'm extremely transparent because we live in an age where you can lie, I'm sure my mom lied to me and protected me from things, but I can't lie. My stuff is on YouTube or Wikipedia, you know what I'm saying? So they're gonna see it.
Yeah.
And so I spoil my kids. That's probably my problem. They spoiled to death. But I've taken them back to where I've grown and where I actually grew up, and let them see those circumstances. They walked inside my old apartment, and I was like, y'all want me to drop you off here? They're like, no, let's go. Right? And so what happens is they have a stronger appreciation for their current set of circumstances.
Yeah.
I took them back to Boston, to Orchard Park, and let them see that. And my wife was shivering. They was like, what in the world, right? But I just wanted them to understand, this is who I am. This is a fabric of myself, which means it's a fabric of you. So as people try to label the hood with a negative connotation, but it was really a great connotation because it taught us respect, hard work, a value system, integrity. It taught us to be a man of our word. It taught us community. It taught us love. I grew up in the hood where if we needed ketchup, well, first thing you do if it's running low, you put a little bit of water in it, you shake it, and that ain't working, you go next door and ask Miss Angie, can you borrow some ketchup? And she would say, sure. She may come back 2 days later and ask for some sugar. If her lights was off, she'll ask for an extension cord to run through the window so we could attach it and cut lights on. So if someone was in need of rent, we had this thing called rent parties where they would turn someone's apartment into a nightclub, charge at the door, and at the end of the night, give the money to the person in need of rent. That was looking out for one another. And so honestly, we all need a little more hood in our life because those principles and values are missing from this world today.
Learning through the adversity.
Absolutely.
And I cannot ask about your kids without talking about stuff.
Oh, that's my baby.
Where did that nickname come from?
Everybody always say that, and I don't even know. It was just like she was a big baby. I remember she came out and she was like, she looked like she was 35 pounds. I think she was like 10, and she just sat there. She ain't cried nothing, and I was just like, it was my first witnessing of a child being born, and I was like in shock. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be a father, and I'm just looking at it, and I was like she had her, you know, she was juicy. I love juicy babies, you know what I'm saying? So she had her little rolls and all that type of stuff. And I was like, wow, she's just a juicy baby. Like she just stuffed. She looked like she stuffed, right? That's you know how you stuff turkey. So she just looked like she was stuffed, and then the name just stuck, right? And so she's been a blessing. Like she taught me unconditional love. She taught me how to love someone other than myself unconditionally. And I'm not sure I had ever did that before, right? But these daughters, man, we'll get back to y'all. Y'all something else, right? So it's been a beautiful journey with her. And she's taught me how to be a better parent. You know, with VJ, we got so much in common. Like his name is Levelle. Like it's so easy to connect. He has a locker. He's involved, right? So he walks in here like he's the star of North Carolina Central. We go get haircuts together. He's good. But my daughter, she forces me to go meet her in her space and not my comfort zone. Right. And that's been like the incredible challenge for me, right? And so it's a beautiful thing just to get to know her and spend father-daughter time. And she's a straight A student, so I guess we're doing something right.
Definitely. And you know, we talk about your daughter. A few years ago, you wanted her to attend Daniels Middle School, now known as Oberlin, where you played basketball at. Why was that so important to you?
I knew what Daniels provided for me. You know, it was my first time. This was in the mid-'80s when I went to Daniels, and honestly, the way I got there, I don't recommend that. I forged some transfer papers because I didn't want to go to the same schools as my friends. So I forged the papers and went to Daniels. And the first week I got there, it was a culture shock. I was like, what in the world? I'm in the class with the governor's son. I'm the only one. I'm in advanced classes. I'm the only one that looked like me. I was like, nah, this ain't it. So I told my mom, I'm transferring. She said, no, you ain't. You staying there. You gonna finish what you started. And I was like, man, so now I had to learn some of their culture, and I was really uncomfortable, but looking back in hindsight, I became comfortable, and it was one of the best things that happened to me, right? Because it taught me that the world was bigger than Lane Street in that 4-block radius, and it taught me how to maneuver and deal with people that didn't necessarily look like me. I wanted the same thing for her, but I didn't want to force that on her, so I told her she can choose between 3 schools. In all honesty, I thought we had this, Daniels had this thing where they had like a wall of fame, right? And I think it was me, Shad, Tay, PJ, I forgot the golfer, Webb, what's the golfer name? Webb or something like that. Like they had a Daniels Hall of Fame, and doing her, I never told her I went to Daniels. So she's walking through the orientation, and she looked and she saw it. She's like, Daddy, you ain't tell me you went here. And I told my wife, I was like, she's not going now because she don't want to follow in my footsteps the way my son does. And so they finished the orientation, and she got in the car. I said, what you think? She said, I want to come here. I said, well, you sure? She's like, yeah. So she's there now, and it's been like a great opportunity for her because Daniels academically, it challenges you, right? And it's challenging her socially to interact and, you know, have interpersonal relationships with other people because this generation is different. I was a latchkey kid. We were outside all day. So we ain't mind talking and socializing. This generation stays inside. They on the computer. They're just typing. So it's a little more difficult for them to communicate. So I'm trying to get her out of her comfort zone and learn how to speak to people and, you know, just soak it all in. So she's doing a phenomenal job so far.
Coach, as we talk about Oberlin Middle School, I'm going to wrap up here, but 7 years ago, you came and spoke at the school to the entire 7th grade class, which I was a part of, and you told a story about a group of guys you used to hang out with and how the decision not to hang out with them on a particular night is single-handedly the reason you're able to be here today. And you don't have to go into too much detail about it, but in a nutshell, could you talk about how hard it was to separate yourself, and for the young Black guys and anyone who looks up to you, how can they change the trajectory of their lives?
That's a great question. I told someone this the other day, and I don't think we realize it, and that applies for my life, your life, and anyone who's in an earshot or eyesight of this, is that where we are now is based off the choices that we made prior to, whether that was good, bad, or indifferent. We're never going to be perfect individuals. But I just strongly advise people to make the right choices. It's really, really difficult, including myself, right? You know, it's, again, I lived on Lane Street half my life, so when there's an altercation, it's more Lane Street in me than professional in me, right? And I got to make the choice to say, nah, I need more professional, right? And so the particular story that you're talking about, I was a fan of this, you're probably too young, I was a fan of this show called Good Times, right? And so back then, we ain't have a VCR, we ain't had no DVR or nothing. That show came on at 5 o'clock. If you wanted to watch it, you better be in front of a TV watching it. There ain't no watching it tomorrow or later. If you missed it, you missed it, right? And so I was so infatuated with this show that my mom bought my brother, I got an older brother who's 5 years older, she bought him like a onesie, a Good Times onesie. And it had like J.J. Evans on the front and Dynamite on it, and then it got too small for him, but it was way too big for me, so he gave it to me. And as I grew, she would just keep cutting the feet out. Right, so after 5 years, it became like a Good Times onesie, and I wore that thing all the time. I loved Good Times. And so now I'm at the park with two of my friends, and I remember, I asked them what time it was. They said it's 4:41. And they was like, we about to go to the store, what y'all about to do? And I was like, I'm going home and watch Good Times. We always watch Good Times and then Fred Sanford, and then the news came on at 6, so we just came back outside. We didn't watch it. We ain't watching it. That's boring. So it was like, man, come up to the store with us. I was like, nah, I'm going home. I'll meet y'all back here about 6:15. I go home, and they go their separate ways. Now, these two friends of mine, we're so close that they don't even knock on my door when they walk in my house. That's how close we are, right? And so if you see one of us, you see all of us every single day, right? And so I'm watching Good Times, and it's around, Good Times have just went off, now I'm watching Fred Sanford. And around 6 o'clock, it's a knock on my door, but it's not a knock, it's what we call a police knock. It's the pound and boom, 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 boom. And my mom was like, what's going on? And so she walks to the door, and he says, ma'am, I need to speak. Are you Levelle, Moton's mom? And she was like, yeah, what's going on? And she was like, ma'am, I need to speak with you. And she said, what's going on? He said, we need him to go with us because he's being investigated for a murder. I like, murder? You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, bruh. So we get in the back of the car. We ride downtown. They mention the name of my two friends. Now my mom, and you know this look, your mom is looking at you like you're lying because I hang with them every single day. And he said he had every reason to believe that I'm with them. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, and so on and so forth. We get down there. It's like an episode of Scared Straight, right? And I'm 12, 13 years old at the moment. And they made me tell them what happened on Good Times that day. And that was my alibi. And little did I know, my friends had went to a convenience store, and they ended up trying to rob the convenience store. And when the clerk came out, they wanted to point the gun at him and accidentally shot him and killed him. So at 13 years old, they got 25 years, right? And when they interviewed them, they was like, nah, he won't with us, right? And so I respect them to this day for that. And we're good friends to this day, and they served 25 years, you know. And again, it was just a choice that I made to not go. And I'm not even saying I was competent enough to do it. I just made that decision because I love Good Times.
Based on
you know
Good
what I'm saying? I
Times,
just love Good Times. So if it was I Dream of Jeannie or something, I probably would have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I'm just really sensitive about choices and trying to be conscious of it because it's something that we all struggle with and doing the right thing all the time.
I just want to talk about the fact that you're able to be living and still receive all of your flowers. Like, what does that feel like?
That's a blessing. Like, that's because, no, truth be told, normally people are dead and gone when they receive some of the things that I received. Like, never in my wildest dreams, and I had some incredible dreams, never in my wildest dreams would I expect, you know, a mural that's, man, I'm speechless.
40 feet
Yeah,
long.
it's like 40 feet long, 20 feet tall. Like, it's crazy that, you know, you're the first black man in the city of Raleigh, which is the capital city, to have that. Like, I'm sure there's many people that's way more deserving and so on and so forth. So I understand the magnitude and responsibility of that. Also, the park being named after me. The ironic thing about the park is that my mother didn't even want me up there. I would get a butt whooping every time she saw me, but she just like, yo, this boy loved basketball so much that, you know, he's gonna go up here and, you know, just fall in love with the game, because at the time it was the inception of crack. So people on this block selling crack, and every 2 days it was somebody shooting, fighting, being stabbed. I seen so many deaths in the middle of that park. I seen people get stabbed, cut, like it was bananas up there, right? But I was always up there, and you know, obviously having a bus, or I called it a statue, they called it a bus. The city was like, we want to do a bust of you, and I didn't even know what a bus was, honestly. I was like, what's a bus? And they was like, you know, the thing like they do with the Hall of Fame people or whatever. So I understand the magnitude of it, and I think Nipsey once said something profound. He was like, the greatest act of a man is to inspire someone else, right? So I just want kids to look at that and feel inspired. I had an interview maybe a month ago with the News and Observer, and I'm driving to the interview, and it's in the middle of Lane Street. I still call it Court Lane Street. It ain't Levelle, but it's Lane Street, right? It's in the middle of Lane Street. And I'm watching, as I'm driving up, I see about 6 or 7 kids, and they're walking in the street. One of them on scooters, one on a bike, one of them got a football, one of them got a basketball, the other one, like, they just reminded me so much of me and my crew when I was young. I was like, what in the world? Like, it was crazy. So I go, and they come up, and it's like, man, you Levelle, Moton, da-da-da, and it's like, yeah. And it's like, my mama said you used to stay right over here. I was like, yeah, I stayed right there. And it's like, for real? I was like, yeah. And it's like, and the park named after you? Well, I said, yeah. So I'm doing the photo shoot with the News and Observer, and then they kind of interrupted it, because they was like, can we come jump in the picture with you? And I was like, sure, come on. You know, so they come jump in the picture, they getting themselves together. Like, it was an insane moment. As I look at the kid closer, one of the 9-year-olds, I look in his back pocket. I said, my man, how old are you? He said 9. He might have been 50 pounds. He had a gun in his back pocket, and I saw it. He was trying to cover it, but he didn't have a belt on, so the gun was so heavy it was pushing him. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, yo, like it just hurt me. The whole time I'm going through the photo shoot, he's looking at me, right? Just like, I don't know, his eyes was big, and I know that look. Then afterwards, when they stopped, he was like, you got kids? I was like, yeah. He said, man, your kid's lucky. I was like, why do you think they're lucky? He was like, man, they lucky to have a daddy like you. And I said, what's your name? And he said his name, and he was like, can I go home with you one day? I was like, sure. You know what I'm saying? He was like, are you really from here? I was like, yeah, I grew up right there. And I said, if you continue to go to school and keep God first and listen to your parents, you can make it out too. He looked me dead in my face and said, for real? You think I can make it out? I was like, oh, like it just broke me down, because I'm like, nobody has given these kids hope. You know what I'm saying? They just think, I know that feeling, they just think they're gonna be in this 4-block radius for the rest of their life. So I just wanted to be an inspiration to kids like that. That's what it's about for me, not this national spotlight thing and any of that stuff. It's just strictly about that, and if I can inspire one, then I've done my job.
And like I said, you're a living legend, and you talk about wanting to inspire kids, but I remember being one of those inspired kids in that 7th grade class, because at the time I didn't know who you were, but I ran home telling my mom, like, Mom, like, somebody came to school today. Like, he's from Southside, like, yeah. So this interview is huge for me. My favorite one yet, my best one. I'm forever indebted to you for this.
Oh, this went too short. I really enjoy your interview. Everybody else out there, take some tips, because y'all interview trash. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know who I'm talking to. I thank you so much, because I like these kind of interviews instead of someone asking about a pick and roll or a 2-3 zone all the time, right? Everybody does that, and that's cool. That got displaced, but these are more valuable.
And I'll be honest, I watched footage of your previous interviews, and that's literally all this talked about.
That's all it's talked about, right?
Basketball.
So I hate them. I'm like, man.
Your awards, your accolades, but I think anyone in the Raleigh community knows that's not just what you're about.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And like, you were incredible. You was articulate. You was well spoken. You act like you were a veteran in here.
I'm gonna cry now.
Nah, you better at which camera? You better at this than your brother is at basketball. That's right. I said nah. So you keep going, because the sky's the limit, right? And you have a passion for this, and you know, if I can't tell you anything that you need to work on, right? Like, not once did you trip over a word. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really incredible. Like, not once did you trip over a word. You was prepared, you was knowledgeable, you've obviously done your research and just bought it, and your transition and segues was great. Keep doing what you're doing, and whatever I can do to help you, like, please let me know. And I will.
Thank you so much.
You the best. Okay.